40 years. 40 years I'd given to Evelyn, to our marriage, to the life we built brick by painstaking brick. We had the house on the hill, manicured lawns, 2 cars in the garage, one for her weekly bridge games, the other for my trips to the golf course. We had a daughter, Sarah, bright and successful, who often wondered aloud why her parents seemed to orbit each other rather than truly connect. I'd always dismissed her observations. She was young, I reasoned. She didn't understand the quiet comfort of a long-standing union. Then came the announcement. "Arthur, darling." Evelyn purred from the doorway of my study, her voice dripping with an artificial sweetness I'd learned to recognize as a precursor to something she wanted. "My girls and I are planning a little trip. A spa getaway. You know, to rejuvenate." I looked up from my ledger, my brow furrowing slightly. Evelyn's girls were a fickle collection of socialites, their friendships as temporary as their latest designer handbags. A spa getaway usually meant a weekend of excessive spending and gossip. "Which spa?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just a lovely little place a few towns over." She waved a dismissive hand. "The Serenity Springs Resort. You wouldn't know it." She smiled, a brittle, knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Don't worry your head about it. Just keep the fort down, won't you?" I nodded, returning to my numbers, but a tiny, insistent knot began to form in my stomach. It wasn't jealousy, not precisely. It was a cold, creeping suspicion, a feeling I hadn't known in decades. Evelyn had always been a spendthrift, but lately, her absences had grown longer, her explanations flimsier. The subtle perfume lingered on her clothes wasn't her usual expensive floral, but something muskier, sharper. I'd attributed it to the myriad of new creams and lotions she'd been experimenting with. Fool. The day she left, I watched her from the kitchen window. She hummed a Johnny tune as she loaded her designer luggage into an Uber. No calls from her friends to coordinate. No shared car. Just Evelyn, radiating an almost manic glee, waving cheerily as the car pulled away. It wasn't the wave of a woman embarking on a relaxing spa weekend. It was the jubilant farewell of someone escaping. That knot in my stomach tightened into a vice. I'd spent 40 years building a life with this woman, ensuring her comfort, providing for her every whim. And in those 40 years, I'd learned one thing about Evelyn. She was a creature of habit and convenience. This sudden, solitary departure, the almost frantic cheerfulness, it was all wrong. I made a phone call, not to Sarah, not yet. First, I needed confirmation. I dialed a friend of mine, a private investigator I'd met years ago through a mutual acquaintance. "A quick favor," I'd said, "nothing scandalous, just a small matter of spousal observation." He agreed, a hint of weariness in his voice. He'd seen it all before. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. A text message, an address, a hotel name. The Grandview Suites, 3 towns over. Not Serenity Springs Resort. The Grandview was known for its discreet luxury, not its mud baths and meditation retreats. And a single photo. Evelyn, laughing, hand linked with a man whose face was obscured, but whose frame was undeniably youthful. My world, the one I had constructed with careful love and unwavering loyalty, didn't just crack. It shattered into a million sharp, glittering fragments. The knot in my stomach exploded into a burning inferno. 40 years. All of it a lie. I didn't hesitate. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and drove. The drive was a blur of highway and simmering rage. My mind replayed every moment, every subtle shift, every unanswered question. The late nights, the vague excuses, the growing distance in her eyes. How could I have been so blind? So utterly, tragically trusting? The Grandview Suites stood like a monument to deceit, its polished glass facade, reflecting the stormy afternoon sky. I parked a comfortable distance away, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I waited and watched. Hours crawled by. The rage receded, replaced by a cold, surgical precision. I was no longer a cuckolded husband. I was an observer, a prosecutor gathering evidence. Then I saw her, Evelyn, emerging from the hotel's main entrance, her arm linked with a man whose golden hair and sculpted jawline screamed youth. He was indeed half her age, if that. He wore a ridiculously tight designer shirt, unbuttoned just enough to reveal a tanned chest, and a smile that was all charm and no substance. My stomach twisted with nausea. They laughed, a bright, careless sound that cut through the genteel hum of the hotel parking lot. They were walking towards a sleek, expensive sports car, not Evelyn's, but clearly his. She pulled a small, delicate hand away from his arm to gesture expansively, her voice carrying on the crisp autumn air. And then, the words, clear as a bell, precise as a surgeon's cut. "He's so pathetic," she giggled, her head thrown back, a sound I'd once found endearing now curdling my blood. "He thinks I'm at a spa? He would never survive without my money." The word struck me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that stole my breath. My money. My 40 years of quiet industry, of careful investments, of planning for our future. It was all reduced to a means to an end, a weapon to be wielded in a cruel jest with a boy toy. Pathetic. That was me. The man who loved her, who provided for her, who trusted her implicitly. Pathetic. A strange calm descended. It was the calm of absolute devastation, of a world utterly destroyed and meticulously reassembled into something new and terrifying. There was no pain, no tears, just a chilling clarity. The man they spoke of, the pathetic one, was me. And she was right, in a way. I wouldn't survive without my money. But neither would she. I watched them drive off, the sports car, a flash of chrome disappearing down the road. Then, I unbuckled my seatbelt, smoothed down my jacket, and walked into the lobby of the Grandview Suites. The lobby was an opulent expanse of marble and polished wood, hushed and elegant. At the concierge desk, a familiar face looked up, his gray hair neatly combed, his eyes immediately recognizing mine. Arthur. Michael, an old friend from our university days, now the head concierge, looked genuinely surprised. "What on earth brings you here?" I offered a tight, unsettling smile. "Michael, good to see you. I'm here on business." My voice was steady, betraying none of the earthquake that had just ripped through my life. "I believe a guest, Evelyn Davies, recently checked in." Michael's professional facade wavered for a fraction of a second. He glanced at the monitor, his expression shifting from surprise to something akin to pity. "Indeed, Arthur. She's in the penthouse suite. And she's registered with a Mr. Julian Vance." He paused, his gaze meeting mine, and I saw the unspoken apology in his eyes. He knew. He must have seen her. They all must have. I simply nodded. "Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your discretion." My gaze swept over the luxurious lobby, the silent witnesses to her betrayal. "I won't be causing a scene here, but I do need a few moments to make some calls, if you wouldn't mind." Michael, sensing the steel beneath my calm, nodded mutely and gestured towards a discreet alcove with a plush armchair and a small table. "Of course, Arthur. Anything you need." I sat down, my hands surprisingly steady as I pulled out my phone. The first call was to my bank's private wealth manager, a man named Mr. Henderson, who had managed my accounts for decades. "Mr. Henderson," I began, my voice clear and authoritative, "I need to close all joint accounts immediately. And I mean immediately." There was a surprised silence on the other end. "Mr. Davies? Is everything all right?" "No, Mr. Henderson, it is not. Effective immediately, all funds from those accounts are to be transferred into the private account linked to my daughter, Sarah Davies. And I want Evelyn Davies's access to any and all financial instruments registered under her name or jointly with mine to be revoked. Credit cards, debit cards, lines of credit. Everything. Freeze it all. Mr. Davies, this is a rather drastic step. Are you certain?" His voice was laced with concern. "I am absolutely certain," I replied, the words clipped and precise. "Consider this my official instruction. I will follow up with all necessary paperwork electronically within the hour. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," he said, the surprise quickly replaced by professional efficiency. "I'll initiate the process at once. It might take a few hours for all systems to update, but the main accounts will be secured within the next 15 minutes. "Excellent," I said, and disconnected. The second call was to Sarah. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright. "Dad, What's up, Sarah? I said, my voice carefully neutral. I need you to listen very carefully. You know your mother is supposedly on a girls' trip? Yeah, she sounded amused. Though I haven't heard from any of the girls. She's not at a spa. She's at the Grandview Suites, 3 towns over, with a man half her age. I laid it out, stark and unvarnished. My daughter deserved the truth. A shocked gasp was her only reply for a moment. Dad, oh my God. Are you okay? I will be, I said, my gaze fixed on a distant point. I've just initiated a transfer of all our joint assets, everything, into your private account. It's a temporary measure to secure it. I need you to understand that this is serious. Your mother, she made some rather disparaging remarks about me, about my financial contributions. She said what? Sarah's voice hardened. I could hear the anger, the protectiveness, in her tone. My daughter, always a fierce defender of what was right. She believes I'm pathetic and wouldn't survive without her money. I recounted, a grim satisfaction in twisting the knife of her own words. Which, of course, is my money. I'm cutting her off, Sarah. Completely. She'll have nothing when she returns. There was a beat of silence, then Sarah's voice, quiet but firm. Good. She deserves it. I've always known there was something off with her. She never truly appreciated what you did for her, Dad. That simple validation from my daughter, the understanding in her voice, was a balm to my raw wounds. I'm glad you understand, sweetheart. I need you to be ready. When she returns, her cards will be declined. The house will be locked. She'll come to you. She'll try to manipulate you. Do not give in. Everything significant is now in your name. We'll discuss the specifics of how to manage it later, but for now, it's secure with you. I won't, Dad. I promise. I'm with you. I spent the next few days in a strange state of suspended animation. The house felt vast and empty without Evelyn, but the hollowness was no longer painful. It was liberating. I meticulously went through files, retrieved documents, and finalized the paperwork Mr. Henderson required. I changed the locks on the house, activated a new security system, and even arranged for a moving truck. I was packing, not just my bags, but my entire life. I hadn't told Evelyn anything. I wanted her to walk back into the wreckage she'd created, oblivious. I wanted her to feel the full, crushing weight of her betrayal. She called me twice throughout the week, her voice breezy and oblivious. Arthur, darling, I'm having such a wonderful time. The spa is divine. You should try it sometime. I'd mumbled non-committal responses, letting her prattle on, each word a cruel reminder of her duplicity, each word fueling my resolve. Then came the day of her return. I knew her flight schedule, her routine. I waited. First, the calls started. They weren't to me. They were to Sarah. Frantic, disbelieving. Calls. Sarah, my card was declined at the airport. Can you believe it? The ATM ate it. Daddy must have forgotten to pay something. Sarah, bless her heart, played dumb, frustrated, then conveniently lost the signal. Next, a call from the taxi driver. Your wife, sir, her card was declined. She's insisting you'll cover it. Tell her the account is closed, I said, my voice flat. She'll have to find another way. The driver, clearly uncomfortable, mumbled something about not my problem and hung up. Evelyn would be furious, stranded a few blocks from the house. Good. Let the inconvenience begin. Finally, the familiar Uber pulled up to the gate of our house, her expensive luggage still inside. The driver, looking harried, handed Evelyn her bags, then sped away. She stood there, framed by the wrought iron gate, looking utterly bewildered. Her perfectly coiffed hair was slightly askew. Her designer clothes looked out of place against her rising panic. She tried her key on the gate. It didn't work. She tried the keypad. It flashed red, denying access. That's when I emerged from the shadows of the porch, a silent sentinel. I was dressed simply, a plain sweater and trousers. No anger on my face, no histrionics. Just a profound, chilling calm. She spotted me, and her face, already contorted with frustration, twisted into a mask of pure fury. Arthur, what is the meaning of this? The gate won't open. And my cards. Everything is being declined. What have you done? I walked slowly towards her, my hands tucked into my pockets. The autumn wind whistled around us, stirring the fallen leaves, mimicking the emptiness of our life. Evelyn, I said, my voice low and even, devoid of all emotion. I know all about your girl's trip. I know about the Grandview Suites. I know about Julian Vance. Her face drained of all color, leaving her ashen. She stammered, Arthur, I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I cut her off, my voice gaining a razor's edge. I heard. You, Evelyn. I heard you tell him what a pathetic fool I was. How I would never survive without your money. I paused, letting the words hang in the air, a sort of Damocles above her head. So, I decided to test that theory. Her eyes, wide with sudden, terrifying understanding, darted from my face to the locked gate, to the dark, silent house behind me. No, Arthur, you wouldn't. You can't. Oh, but I have, Evelyn, I said, a slow, grim smile touching my lips. All our joint accounts are closed. All assets transferred. Every card, every line of credit, every single cent of my money that you believed was yours is gone. You have nothing. She recoiled as if I'd slapped her, her jaw dropping. You monstrous bastard. 40 years. How could you do this? How could I do this? I chuckled, a hollow sound. How could you? You degraded me, Evelyn. You stripped me of my dignity, my devotion, my belief in everything we built. You turned my love into a punchline for your cheap thrill. And for what? A boy who'll abandon you the moment your gilded cage loses its luster. I stepped closer, her wide, horrified eyes fixed on mine. I hoped the vacation was worth the next 20 years of poverty. Her scream ripped through the quiet evening air, a raw, primal sound of pure despair and rage. She lunged at me, clawing, but I stepped back, untouched, leaving her sprawled on the cold pavement, surrounded by her expensive luggage, utterly destitute. I left her there. The next morning, the moving truck arrived. I said goodbye to Sarah, who hugged me tight, tears in her eyes, not for her mother, but for the man I had become and the peace I was finally seeking. Evelyn, I later heard, after a humiliating and fruitless attempt to involve lawyers, who quickly informed her of the precise, legal devastation I had wrought, ended up in a dingy studio apartment in the seedier part of town. Julian Vance, unsurprisingly, vanished. Her girls quickly found new company. The world, it seemed, wasn't so kind to a woman without her money. Me? I moved to a quiet cabin in the mountains. The air is clean and crisp, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. I wake with the sun, drink my coffee on the porch watching the mist lift from the peaks, and spend my days reading, hiking, and rediscovering the simple pleasures of life. Sarah visits often, her laughter a bright melody in the stillness. Sometimes, a flicker of memory, a ghost of the past, drifts through my mind. 40 years. A lifetime. But I look out at the endless expanse of pine and granite, and I know I am free. Free from the lie, free from the contempt, free from the woman who thought my love was a weakness. And for the first time in a very long time, I finally feel like I can truly survive and thrive.